Hey all, Tony Bing here. Hello and welcome to another in-depth character review for Marvel Strike Force. Now the character we will cover in today's video will be the Amazing Spider-Man. He's a character that won out when I put a poll up on Twitter, and that's how I'll probably decide who I cover next in these videos, so do keep an eye on my Twitter feed for these polls. Now in this video what we'll cover to give you an idea of how he plays and let you know whether or not you want to farm him or not is we'll do a general overview of the character first. We'll then check out his stats, we'll have a look at his abilities, we'll look at the synergies, and this is the teams that he can work well with and also the teams that he wants to avoid, and then we finish up by having a discussion about how he plays overall, and also we'll place him in the tier list that I've created as well. So first up anyway, what we'll do is we'll have a look at the general overview for the character. So Spidey's quite an odd character in the game in that he's one of the flagship Marvel characters, but despite that he's not actually the highest tier as you expect would be the case with him. Now saying that, he's certainly not bottom tier as I see some people in chat believe, and he is a real slow burn and he takes a while to get going, and I think that's where a lot of people do have trouble with him. He's got quite a lot in his kit. He's got his evade, he's got defense down, and I think there's maybe only one other hero that has that. He's got his stun, which is fantastic, as Black Widow can attest when she's stunning characters, and he's got his dodge chance built into his passive as well, which helps his survivability. Now when it comes to farming him, he's only currently available in Blitz mode, so he has a bit of a slow farm, and again as mentioned he doesn't really shine until he gets to higher levels, so he's a project that if you want to work on him you really need to have a bit of patience before you will see the results. Now in the next section anyway we will check out his stats. So with the stats here, we'll look at 6 in total. We look at 3 offensive stats and also 3 defensive, and I scaled them on a rating of A to F. So first up we'll have a look at his offensive stats. So offensively then, as you can see, he actually does really pretty well. He's sitting at B for everyone, so we've got damage, speed and also focus there. So the focus means that when he uses, for example, his stun or his defense down, it will have a higher chance to actually apply. Speed means he's attacking quicker, of course, and then you've got his relatively nice damage as well. The only real problem with him, which we'll see in a moment, can be his survivability, but there are ways we can make that a bit better. So let's check out the defensive stats. So defensively here then, you can see for his stats he's really not looking too good initially. He's got his health and armour, which is both F rank when we compare him to other heroes, and his resistance is D. Now earlier on in the video I did mention the fact that he's a bit of a slow burn, and this is where I can explain this a bit more. So you've got the low stats when it comes to health, armour and resistance. However, as you level up his passive you can actually gain dodge chance, and you can get up to 30% dodge chance, which is absolutely huge. And he also has evade baked into one of his skills that we'll check in the next section. So as with all glass cannons really, you want to run them with a tank as well, but his survivability isn't as bad as his initial stats would suggest because of the dodge and the evade as well. But let's look at the skills now. So we'll now have a look at his 3 main skills and his passive. We'll look at them based on the fact that we're level 7, which is the maximum potential of the character when we can fully upgrade him. Now the passive is Spidey Sense, and once this is upgraded to level 5, which is the maximum passives go up to, you gain a whopping 25% dodge chance. Now Spidey actually already has 5% dodge chance as standard, so that gives you the 30% that we talked about a moment ago when we were looking at the stats. Now that is great, but one thing to bear in mind that makes it even better is if you want to put Spidey in your defense team when it comes to arena mode, the actual AI always has a much higher chance of procs such as dodge, evade and also when Elektra revives. The reason for that is the AI has to compensate to an extent because it can't play as smart as an actual player would, so that's something to bear in mind there. For his basic attack we have a skill called Agile Attack. Now this is pretty nice, but I do think that it could be pulled up a little bit more and made a bit more powerful. So you attack the primary target for 210% damage, and you have a 70% chance to chain up to 1 adjacent targets for 60% damage, which is pretty low. I do feel the chain could go up higher, and the amount of damage he does could go up higher as well. One thing we do have with this skill, which is really nice and it helps out defensively, is we've got a 40% chance to evade. That may seem quite low, but you have to bear in mind that there's no cooldown on the agile attack and you could spam it every turn if you wanted, so that's the reason that can't be any higher there. For his special skill, we've got a really nice one here. This is Web Slinger now. It's got a 3-turn cooldown, but it starts fully charged. So you attack the primary target for 170% damage, and the great thing about this is you can chain anywhere between 1 to 3 adjacent targets for an additional 130% damage. But when it's maxed out at level 7, you actually have a 100% chance to apply defense down to each target for 1 turn. So you could be looking at up to 4 targets that have defense down. If you can then match that up with a hero that's got offense up and then AoE after it, then you would absolutely demolish the other team. For his ultimate skill, we have one called Tangled Web. So it takes 5 turns to charge, but it does thankfully come with 3 charges already built into it. Now with this, you apply stun to the primary target for 1 turn. Stun's especially great on slower heroes, the likes of Hulk, who you can lock down for a whole match if you can stun him and get him slowed as well. And with this, you actually do a really nice amount of damage. It's up to 520% damage you would do when this is fully maxed out at level 7. So with the skills covered anyway, what we'll do next is we'll have a look at the synergies, and this is teams you can work in and also other teams that you want to avoid with them. When it comes to characters that you want to pair Spider-Man up, there's not really any ones that are immediately obvious here, and that will, I imagine, change in time as we get more Spider-Verse style characters joining the game. I can't wait for that. Spider-Woman, Spider-Gwen and so on, that's going to be fantastic. Now if we do look at the ones anyway he can work well with, you've got Jessica Jones first. The reason he works well with her is he has the city tag, and as part of her passive she can offer 35% resistance to city style characters. Now next up we have Black Widow and Quake. The reason they can work well with them is if you can stun a character and then speed up yourself and slow down that enemy, you can keep them locked down, and if you're running with Black Widow you've then got 2 stuns, so you can really take out any dangerous enemies from the equation nice and easily there. Finally, if you want to run a bit of a troll team to wind up other players, you could match them with Hand Sentry and Nebula. So Hand Sentry would be priding him extra evade on top of his dodge and the evade on his basic skill, and also if you've got Nebula in that team as well, she can get a heap of evades, so most of the enemy attacks would be missing, and I imagine it could be quite frustrating. So that could be quite a fun one to run there. But next up what we'll do is we'll check out the players that you actually want to avoid pairing them up against. So when it does come to specific characters or teams that you want to avoid as Spidey, this is a section that, to be honest, really did struggle a bit with. Of course, characters that can do a high amount of damage, you want to avoid them with any character. So if I was to list them, I'd be listing off almost all the high DPS characters in the game, but what I want to focus on is ones that are specifically dangerous for certain heroes. Now, the only one that I would really say that you want to avoid as Spider-Man would be Hawkeye. The reason for that is Spider-Man has his evade and his dodge, which makes up for the fact he's got low defensive stats. However, Hawkeye actually does unavoidable damage on all 4 of his skills. Now a character who you imagine would have this as well but doesn't at the moment is actually Bullseye. He's in need of a massive buff, so hopefully they do add that, and if they do add that, then add him to this list anyway. But next up we'll run over just my general thoughts and we'll see where we would place him tier wise. So as we mentioned really at the start of the video, Spider-Man is a character that can be very strong. He's not the strongest of heroes as you may imagine for a hero of his particular calibre, but he really shouldn't be written off at all, and if you're willing to spend a bit of time and also currency in unlocking him, then you really will start to reap the rewards for him. So let's see where he would show on the tier list. So before we actually do place them here, I'll just quickly run down how this works. So we've got the shield classification levels. The lowest one is level 1, and it goes to level 2 and 3. Then we move up to alpha, where we're getting really nice characters, and then finally the Mega tier is reserved for the strongest and must have characters in the game. So let's see where we're going to place Spidey. There we go, we have our first alpha character. So as I did say, he's a character that you do need to put a fair bit of effort into, but if you're willing to put in that effort, then you will most certainly reap the rewards with him. So as always, I hope this guide video has been useful. Keep an eye on my Twitter for the poll for the next character that I'll cover, and thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all again soon.